suppose Castres this weekend, a French team away in the first round of European competition is always a tricky one. You never really know what you're going to get. I suppose a French team in round one is always different to a French team in round five. But what are Munster going to have to watch out for this weekend?
Yeah, I think it's because I suppose it's the first game for Cast in the group, and albeit they haven't been going too well this year in the league, I think this is I suppose the competition. This the way they look at it. This could kickstart their season because they have a good team. They have a good squad. They have a couple of guys coming back. Rory Cockett's been out for a couple of games, and he's massive to them. Um, Look, they're a big pack with a big set piece. Um, I suppose traditionally Munster down there, it's always been quite a difficult game. And I think, as I said, their consistency this year has so far, albeit it's only 7 games in, traditionally they're a team that start quite well because they don't lose too many players for the early games because they don't have too many of French internationals in their squad. But they do. As I said, they have a very, very good set piece, and they have threats as well. You've guys like Gordon Pello out half. He's a very good player, very consistent goal kicker, and guys like David Smith as well, who's got a bit of X factor going on. So, and as I said, Rory Cockett as well, who's obviously we'd all know from the French team. So, I think it's going to be a huge challenge for Munster. As you said, it's the first game. They're at home. The crowd, I suppose, will be looking for a win at home. Traditionally, Cast are a team that early doors in the competition, they're a team that they'll go for it. And obviously, being the first game, they will. Knowing their coach as well, I played under him in Bourgoin, and he valued the Champions Cup. So I think it's going to be a very big challenge. But you know what? For Munster, I think even winning in France with that group of players last year against Racing, they'll take huge confidence off that coming to France. So and I think the Munsters have got this. They have this bit of inner belief as well that they can go to places and win, and there's no reason why they can't this week. I do think it's going to be probably a bit more difficult than people are expecting. Because I suppose, look, Castres are hurting a small bit from their slowest start in the league. But when I think when it comes to it, I think Munster have that bit more about them that if they can challenge up front and generate that, it's like anything, generate that quick ball, especially with the Munster backs that are there at the moment, they can cause problems out wide. I think to Cast.
Mike, we spoke during the week at the Munster press conference, and there was very much, I suppose, following on from the Leinster game where they fell foul of the referee and they didn't really get to grips with the way he was refereeing the game. Very important that they find out what the referee wants early on Sunday and don't give away silly penalties. Keep the penalty count down. Don't let the French crowd get on the referee's back. And obviously there's a balancing act between that and keeping your edge, but it's not an easy one to come up with.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's especially when you've the two very, very consistent goal kickers, especially Rory Cockett in their team. So it's something obviously coming off the last day, probably not a bad thing. It's I suppose it's something that's going to be so fresh in their head that they're going to have to be so aware about to keep their penalty count down. But look, their team. It hasn't been a problem for them, I don't think, in the past. It's a game or two. I'm sure Razzie and the leaders and stuff will highlight it this week and they'll address it. And as you said, they'll have their analysis done on the referee as well for the weekend and what he's hot on, what he's not hot on, and just getting that right and just concentrating more so on what they can do well, and what they need to implement from a strategic point of view more so, and just cutting back and as we said, those penalties because it's certainly a thing in France. I know when things go your way, the crowd gets behind you and the players' chests go out a small bit, and that's when the French teams can become hard to break down. So I do think it's something that there's so many smart players and smart coaches and staff Munster have that they're going to be well prepped for that.
The Munster forwards are going to play a key role on Sunday, I imagine, because we all see Munster's attacking game trying to evolve and trying to use the backs and be a bit more dynamic, but you can't really do that unless you get dominance up front. The Munster front five are really going to have to get a grip early and provide that go forward ball.
Yeah, I agree, but I suppose it's something you look at. Look, their scrum has been a huge weapon over the last couple of years, especially the last two, kind of 3 seasons. Um, they have a strong scrum, but also they're very mobile props as well. And Niall Scannell, obviously, they've a mobile front five, which is something that, if they get their set piece right, I do think even from a conditioning point of view, I think that they can outwork Cast. And look, as you said, they're evolving their attacking game now, which involves holding on to the ball more, and that's something you need to do against, I suppose, against French teams as much as you can. It's like Leinster playing against Montpellier. Same thing. You got to hold on to the ball because, from Montpellier's point of view, there's so many threats, but also Cast have those threats as well. Eberson in midfield, who Razzie would know well as well from his South African days. He's quite a dangerous 13, as well. So, from that point of view, yeah, it's going to be it's going to be a big task. It's going to be a big ask. But look, I don't think Munster have anything to fear from that point, because it has been a strength of theirs. Their driving maul has been a very potent weapon for them as well. So I'm sure they'll go back to a bit of basics, get those things right. As you said, the discipline, set piece, defense. They're things that win games, especially away from home. And as the game, pushes on in time, and breaks up a small bit more, that's where they look to, I suppose, capitalize from an attack point of view. But yeah, it's I think it's we spoke about how, I suppose, the cast pack, how big they are and stuff, but from a mobility point of view, that's where I think Munster can get their edge as well.
I know we touched on Farrell and Rory Scannell will most likely be the centre pairing this weekend. I don't think they've played together competitively before, so there's a lot of onus on these guys to, number one, function defensively and stop the Castres centres, but two, when we get the ball, that they can implement the attacking game.
Yeah, they're two very, very creative centres. I think I had Chris here, and I was with him in Grenoble for a couple of seasons. So well aware of his strengths going forward and defensively as well. He's a very good defender, and obviously Rory has been, probably Munster's one of the consistent players over the last season or 2 or 3 seasons. So, and he came on last week and made a huge impact. So from that point of view, I think that they're the two guys that can give Munster something from a decision making point of view. And obviously you have the likes of JJ as well, and Tyler, Ian Keatley. So you've so many options there. Who starts, who's on the bench? Maybe they might go with sounds like they might go with Tyler, but having JJ to come in when the game is broken up as well, and then obviously having the threats outside like Earlsey, and if Zebo is back, and Darren Sweetenham, Conway, these guys, So, but they know, as you alluded to earlier on, you've got to do it up front, to provide that quick ball and get the ball into these players' hands. But from a centre point of view, I think it's an interesting one to see Rory and Chris together. I think they actually played maybe Irish 20s a couple of years ago together. So they'll gone back a few years, but they'll know each other. They'll have trained with each other, obviously. And they're two players for me, I suppose. They're players that can get you go forward, as in physically, but also they're two very, very good ball players. Personally known Chris for a couple of years, just his passing game, his offloading game, and it's only now probably over the next couple of weeks we'll see that players, you've already coming back into it, you've a couple of internationals, they'll be able to read, especially as a 13. I remember Casey Lowell and guys like that. It takes time for guys to read players like that, to run off them. And I think that will really come to fruition over the next few weeks when I suppose when you're going into Champions Cup, you probably go with quite a settled team for a few weeks, obviously, and it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But definitely, as I spoke about, for me, Munster are a very, very dangerous team. When like I said, I mentioned some of those backs that you can unleash.
Yeah, a lot of strength and depth this season, and especially, of course, we've a new coach coming in, Johan van Gran. We don't know when he's exactly going to arrive, but he will have a period of an overlap with Erasmus. He's coming into an environment where there's a relatively big amount of expectation, considering how the team went last year. But he's also coming into to a Munster squad that is laden with talent.
Yeah, it's as strong as a squad that I suppose that has been there for the last number of years. You look at every position; it's two or three deep. You know, you're starting to get young guys through as well. And to be fair to Razzie and Fla and Felix and Jacques, they've developed young players as well over the last year and a half, and they're starting to really push through now. So that depth is there. The expectation is always there from Munster, which is a great thing, and that's what drives things and drives standards. He's actually a coach I don't know much about. I've spoken to a couple of people over the last few days about him. And his background is quite interesting. He started off as an analyst, obviously, and worked his way up, and is a real student of the game by all accounts. Interesting to see he's a forwards coach, but also he was the attack coach in 2015, the World Cup. You've guys like John de Villiers and these world class players speaking very highly of him. So, he's come with good pedigree, and I suppose having that relationship with Razzie will help for the transition. But yeah, it's look, when you come into Munster, the expectation as a player, as a coach, as everything is very high. And that, as I said, that pushes standards. And you look, as we spoke, but you look at the squad now, so I'm sure, you know, he was with a national team. There's a World Cup 2 years away. For him to make this decision is a big one, but I'm sure he wanted to know was it the right one. And you sit down and obviously you do your interview, but you find out exactly what's there. And for any coach going into a squad like Munster have built now, it's quite a an interesting one to go into, and a very attractive looking squad.
That's super, Mike. Just and finally, I suppose you are. How do you see the game going on Sunday? Are you tipping Munster?
I am. I think it'll take a bit of time. I think it'll be a big struggle, I suppose. At the start of the game, they're going to come out all guns blazing. Knowing, as I said, I've had previous history. I've been coached by their head coach. He's quite a passionate guy. He's a very well organised coach, actually. And the Castres went well over the last couple of seasons. Started a bit slowly, but just in the media, even over here at the moment, they're looking forward to this game. Munster, as a team, as a province, as everything, is highly regarded over here. There's good excitement about them coming over playing Cass. So I think they're looking for something to really kick off their season. And as I said, they'll come out all guns blazing. But Munster just need to tame that for the especially first 20 minutes, as you said. Discipline wise, everything. I do think, and especially with the depth Munster have, players to be able to bring off the bench and stuff, I do think Munster will, in the second half, I don't know, will it put away, but I think they'll have enough in it to win by potentially maybe 10 points or so.